GERO 508. It's John again, and this is week 2. So we're going to be getting into the mind now, and we're going to be talking about clinical depression in this lecture. I'm in a new environment, which is awesome. You can see right up there, that's a picture of Julie and my two boys. Okay, and gives me great pleasure. Um, she um, she is my cognitive behavioral therapist. She was my savior, and we've been together a long time. And I'm always pumping that up. It is a really cool thing to be able to look back and live in the moment and look forward. And have been together 37 and a half years and married 33 years in August, which is pretty awesome. So anyway, so that's a picture a long time ago with my 19-year-old and my 24-year-old. For those of you that are from a different part of the country, a bit of family history, that's Southern Illinois, okay? And it was a farm that was in the family name for almost 200 years, and her family name, not mine. And and then what happened was typical what happens in Americana. Her grandparents had 4 children. All 4 children went to college and then spread out through the country. And then except for Julie's mom, who went to New Orleans and all around the country with her dad, and but they ended up having to sell the family farm after so many years in the family, which was tragic. And then on this side, you see all the quilts, and there's a whole rack of these. And up on top, you see Julie's grandmother, and she was actually her and her family were featured a long time ago in Life magazine. This gigantic family of German ancestry called the Schnacki family, and she was actually a Schnacki by roots, and then married Julie's grandfather, Leroy Jones. Anyways, that's the new environment I'm in here. Let's switch it up. Okay, let's go dive right into what we're doing here. Um, you'd always keep your eye on some of the deadlines, and I'm going to send a completely separate um, set of instructions for the journal paper that's coming up. Again, that's due July 6th. Okay, so it's a little over a week from now, and yeah, today's the 28th, Sunday the 28th of June 2020, and I turned 64 in 2 days on June 30th. So you can always send me a happy birthday note, which is awesome. Alrighty, so this is this short paper that you're going to have come up. Again, you see that it requires a phase page, an abstract page, 4 pages that include introduction, method, result, and discussion, and one reference page. The key concept of this is that you focus on an area that's particular interest to you, that's within the scope of this class, okay? The topics we cover, okay? Again, you make this up. You make up the data and everything, and then you plot it, okay? So it's it's just giving you an exercise of putting together a research paper, and um, and just there's a very lengthy description of what you need to do, and it's very cool. And Again, this is a mock paper, okay? And if you need a feel for what's going on, you just click right here, and this is luckily one of our students said it would be okay to show her paper, and this is Sarah Holtz's paper from a while back. And this is her face page, and this is how you build it, okay? And then the abstract page, okay? And then in the abstract, of course, summarizes the entire study. Um, Here's the introduction, sorry, and with proper citations, and it's key that you have citations to support your argument. Okay, you put those in the reference page at the very end. Here's her methods page of what she did. Okay, in doing her study, if she would have done it. Okay, and she generated a results section, as you see right here. She did both a table with a description of the table, and then she did figures. I would have preferred that she did the figures and then also included figure legends, but she didn't, and that's okay. She did a great job. Here's the discussion again. So you bring back in the introduction. You're discussing your results and how it adds to the body of knowledge, and that's the whole. Well, that's why we do what we do, and so you're furthering knowledge, okay, which is awesome. And then here's your citations. So it's pretty straightforward stuff. Alrighty, so I've kind of already done with the instructions, but I'll do them again later on, just for good. Okay, so let's go to our weekly assignments now. Um, Boom. Okay. So last week, we started with a little introduction into psychology and the psychology of stress. Okay. We got into some kind of really interesting biology that taps into your genetics, taps into how the DNA works, and how life experiences influence the different types of proteins that the DNA sends out. Well, it doesn't send out, it sends out the messenger RNA, which is the recipe for making new proteins. And the thing, how that cookbook, 23 chromosomes that we have is influenced. How does each cell know, which way to go? Remember, it's it's epigenetics that turns on and off the the genes. And again, these genes are the recipes for making proteins that decides that one cell is going to be a skin cell and the other cell is going to be a nerve cell. So muscle cell, on and on. And then within the context of a nerve cell, we can have further epigenetic switches that that can either improve the performance of the nerve cell or be detrimental. And that's the concept of this class is that extreme chronic stress, how it can be detrimental. Okay. All righty. So in that, in keeping with that, what we're going to do is we're going to go look at one of the really just fundamental reasons for chronic stress, and that's clinical depression. Okay, and begin to discuss the pathology that it creates in your brain. All righty. So again, this video is going to go right in here, and this I do tap into Robert Sapolsky's expertise because he is, in my view, the world leader in stress and stress research. Plus, he's just such an amazing communicator. And so I'm gonna ask you to take the time to watch his hour-long lecture. It's from 2009. It's a classroom setting. It's really cool. Okay. Um, but in keeping with the theme of this course, I want you to realize that you can look at some pretty significant biology papers and still grasp the essence of what it's all about and where this whole field is moving. And that's, again, the concept is you guys, we're training you to be at the next level. I'm 64 and I'm passing the baton to you to carry on this really, really important area of education and research. Okay? All right. So we're going to look at um, the pathology, okay, that happens, okay? And you know what? I'm looking at this right now. I hear and I see that um, the discussion is replicated. So what I'm going to do is I need to get rid of this thing right here because it's replicated down here on the bottom. All right, that's all right. Okay. Um, okay. So, but as we go through this, I'm going to move this thing right up here. Okay. Well, which I can do, which I just did. And so this is the assignment, okay? And then after that comes the discussion. All right. So there's the quiz, and again, this is lecture 3 and the discussion. All right. Very cool. And I will remove the duplication that exists. Okay. All right. So this right here is going to be removed. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so again, in keeping with our normal format, I'm going to put the quiz right there. All right. So yeah, so we actually completely reformatted the course, as you know. So every once in a while, I'm going to stumble upon these reformatting different changes, and I'm going to fix them. All right, back to where we were. Okay, I'm going to give you a review of what it is you're supposed to take out of this paper, and then and then we'll go into the paper. We'll kind of read it together. All right. Does that sound cool? Alrighty. So we're going to begin with the brain. Okay. So we perceive a stress. Okay. It could be visual information come from your eyes and it goes back here to the visual cortex. It could be something you smell that comes from the olfactory cortex. If you smell gas, there's an immediate alarm that goes off. It could be something you hear a siren when you're driving and you immediately react in a very stressful way, okay? You see a mountain lion coming at you, you're gonna react. Okay, so all that being said, there's the processing we talked about. We talked about the triad the last time, okay? So we have that incoming sensory information and then it just compares it to life history. So we go back into our memories, okay? Hippocampus kind of retrieves that information, and the hippocampus also says, okay, whatever is happening now, we're going to add to that memory. Okay. In the same time, it goes to the front of your brain, which is the decision maker, the frontal cortex. And hippocampus is working with the frontal cortex, and this is your scratch pad, your working memory, where you're just kind of going, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Where do I go? I hear a siren. The first thing I do is I look in the mirror, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? All right. And then at the same time, it sounds off the physiological alarm system, which is the amygdala. Okay. Anger, fear, rage. Okay. Okay, now if this is a truly stressful situation, we need to recruit the body to be on board. We need to get the blood pumping, boom, 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 boom. Okay, heart needs to go, rate goes needs to go up, blood pressure needs to go up, and we redirect the blood flow to our heart, our skeletal muscles, the muscles that we need to run, and then we increase the blood flow to our brain. We shut down blood flow to things that we don't need, like kidneys, stomach, intestines, all that kind of stuff. Okay. All right, because you don't need to be making urine right now because you're being chased by a lion. All right. So all this happens. How do we bring the body on board? So we talked about that. So the amygdala, okay, anger, fear, rage, sends its connections to this hypothalamus right here. Okay, so this is at the very base of the brain. And then the hypothalamus then communicates with the pituitary. Pituitary releases its hormone, which is called adrenocorticotropin hormone, ACTH, and that travels through the bloodstream down to your adrenal gland, which looks like two little caps sitting on each kidney. Okay, and then on the outside, and every time we talk about the outside of a structure in biology, it's called the cortex. Okay, so on the outside of the adrenal gland are these specialized cells that respond to the ACTH by releasing cortisol. And cortisol has a number of functions. First of all, it does this redirection. It shuts down the immune system. It shuts down digestion. And, all these things that you don't need. It also is a message of, hey, liver, we need some glucose. So it goes to liver, and poof, you bring up a bunch of rocket fuel. Okay, because you're running. And at the same time, as you see right here, it goes back up to the brain and to the pituitary, and it's constantly having this negative effect. So by convention, this sign in biology means negative or inhibitory, or can we turn it off? Okay. So if the stress is gone, then it really dramatically speeds up the rate at which you can turn the system off. And that's what you want to do. You want to turn it off. Okay. Because it's very costly to be physiologically stressed all the time at the level of all your body, and and it can create. We're going to learn later on. It can create diabetes. It can create chronic stress. It can create dementia, things like this. Okay, so that's kind of this primer. Now this paper, I'm warning you, gets into some amazing molecular biology, and you're not going to be really held responsible for this. I just want you to know that you can read it. Okay, so in terms of molecular biology, so if I open up cells, okay, up here in the brain, okay, that are responding to this cortisol. We come down here, see the cortisol, okay. So what does cortisol do? So cortisol, okay, is going to bind to cortisol receptors, okay. We've heard about the mineralocorticoids, the MRs, and the GRs, all right, the glucocorticoid receptor. So it's going to bind to that, and it is modulated by this unique molecular profile. Okay, and the only reason we're doing this is just like in cancer treatment, okay, where we try to do individualized therapy, just like in terms of cardiovascular disease. Everybody is different, and we actually have made so many strides in terms of treating everybody individually with their unique diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, things like that. But we have a very generic platform for treating depression. Okay, so the goal is in what this paper is talking about is that we can start doing tests, genetic tests. Just like Julia signed up for a clinical trial, and she had this huge battery of genetic tests for her leukemia, so that we could find out the 15 different mutations. So that and from that we meaning the oncologists, they realized we can't treat Julia's cancer with the standard of care um, 3 combination drugs of chemotherapy, because her mutations were resistant to that type of therapy, and she would have died if they would have given her. So then they gave her different targeted therapy that researchers showed these genes and the proteins that they're responsible for producing abnormally are responsive to these new drugs. And so, boom, so she's survived, for I think she's in a 6 year of survival. And so yeah, so how about doing the same thing for depression? Why not? Why not genetically profile? Because everybody's different. Everybody's depression comes from a different place of um, you know your cookbook being different. One copy from mom, one copy from dad. Your epigenetics being different, and then your life circumstances being different. Right? So that's what this whole paper is all about. You can read through this, and I kind of overview exactly what it was I was talking about. Okay, very cool. So then, so I want you to read this paper, and what I can do is I can click on it right here. It's going to come up. Okay. All right. So this is a really really cool paper. All right. So you're going to see when you watch this Sapolsky um, video, and this is actually from the classroom that he did from quite a few years ago, probably about 15 years ago. That he talks about the different types of depression, and we all at some point in time will suffer from some form of depression, right? So some can be kind of simple depression that he talks about, like you had a bad day, your boss yelled at you or whatever, and then you recover from it, and the next day the boss is fine, right? So then there's reactive depression, when your spouse dies. When Julie was, diagnosed with cancer, we both kind of had a tailspin from that. Okay. Um, and then, depending on your genetic vulnerability, and yes, there's a high genetic vulnerability for this. So there's family lines where these type of environmental stimuli that I just talked about, okay, getting really, really bad news. Having your boyfriend or girlfriend, your significant other, break up with you unexpectedly, okay, or be really bad to you, okay. And Jill and I went through this. We both had harsh realities when we right before we met each other. It was ages ago. She had a super bad relationship, abusive, the whole 9 yards. When she was 19, and I met her a week after she turned 20, and I had the same drill when I was in my early 20s to mid 20s, and then so I met her when I was 26 and a half, and it was like, okay. So, but we were coming both from a bad place, and I was pretty depressed from it. All right, so that's an example of major depressive disorder, where it's not you're down and out for a couple of days or weeks, but it really weighs you down in terms of your inability to experience happiness and pleasure for months on end. It can be even years on end. Okay. All righty. Now, they're talking about heterogeneous. Means what is heterogeneous? Means it's all over the place. Okay, it's a condition that expresses itself very different in every individual. Major depressive disorder and MDD. They talk about it all throughout here. Okay, um, roughly 20% of us will experience this during our entire lifetime. That's the prevalence, a lifetime prevalence. Okay, so that's pretty significant. That's a major drain on society. Some people even say 30 to 40%. So it's very, very common. Okay. The problem is, okay, when you first go see a psychiatrist, okay, because you're suffering from this, and there's a lot of symptomology that you would go through. Okay, there's not only the feeling down, your sleep is disrupted for months to years. You can be lethargic, or you can have what's called psychomotor agitation, where you're just kind of moving all over the place. Everybody's different. Okay. Um, and when everybody's different, and again, this is the uniqueness of genetic profile, more than 50% of patients don't even respond to the first treatment they're prescribed. And so oftentimes you have to go through a series of different drugs to find the right one. And I'm an advocate of this, along with cognitive behavioral therapy, where you are able to restructure your brain, your synapses. But 30% are very, very insensitive and don't do well. Okay, so this paper is all about right now all the drugs that we use for treating clinical depression. They treat the brain hormones, serotonin, that gives you a feeling of being part of a group, that you're in the groove, into society, within your family, within a relationship. Norepinephrine, that gives you your arousal, and dopamine, that gives you your feeling of pleasure. So the drugs that we give, Prozac, um, is the classic drug, but there are many other drugs that are out there that are used that Paxil that increases dopamine. These are all targeting these drugs, and they're not very specific. Okay, so it's a very global effect of any synapse in the brain. So you're going to have GI problems with this because you have so much dopamine and serotonin in your stomach, and so there's no free lunch, and while it may help in one way, it may alter your well-being in another way. So we're always looking for something better as a bottom line. Okay. And that's what this particular paper is all about. And so it focuses in on the very part of the brain that we've been discussing, and that's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Okay, maybe we can develop drugs that will target um, the cortisol receptors, or drugs that precede that, or unique molecular differences that exist amongst us, and that's what this is all about right here. All right, so that's kind of the overview. Again, this is well worth reading the introduction. Again, like I said, um, there's a lifetime prevalence. So prevalence means if we were to take everybody in the world, okay, or a sample, okay, sample of 10,000 people, okay, and we looked over their lifetime, okay, that's our window we're looking at. 20% of those people are going to have a major depressive disorder that is completely debilitating. And this is a disease. It's debilitating. Okay, it is biological, and it really is difficult to live with. And it has major consequences in terms of heart disease, in terms of diabetes, in terms of Alzheimer's, all these. So it can spring into those later on in life. Okay. Um, and so it's the real deal that needs to be treated. And a lot of people um, do not seek treatment, especially men. Okay, and it's because of the stigma, that you're weak if you're depressed, which is just insane. It's like saying you're weak because you caught a cold. I mean, it's biological. It's purely biological, and people need to be able to really wrap their heads around this. Okay, alrighty. So as I indicated, and they talk about right here again, a lot of people do not respond to the drugs. And so the goal, and as I mean, I'm not going to read all this, and don't get caught up in the detail, but we do want to be able to develop some personalized and precision medication, okay, that maybe can build upon the existing current therapies that psychiatry uses, okay. So we'll do the cognitive behavioral therapy, we'll do the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, okay, like Prozac, um, or we can do dopamine modulators like Paxil and things like that, okay? Um, and that's the object. We want better precision medicine. That should be the goal, okay? All right, so then they get in here and they talk about looking at 21,000 individuals. That's when you're talking statistics, okay? That's the power of a statistical analysis reflects the sample size. So that's a very large sample size, okay? And basically, there is, like I said, a large hereditability, okay? There's large genetic basis, okay? So 40%, okay? And then there's also a lot of common environmental factors that get in there as well, okay? And it's a mix of nurture and nature, just like we saw the epigenome. The epigenome is going to translate into a nurture nature expression behaviorally of clinical depression. Okay, and so they go through a lot of the adverse environmental effects. Okay, and just don't get caught up in the details. Okay, so we know, okay, that with trauma, okay, we're going to have a major fight or flight response. Okay, and then that taps into the hypothalamic pituitary axis. Okay, what is that trauma initiated? We sense it. Okay, if somebody smacks me in the face repeatedly, okay, I've been abused. Okay, so that pain, and then the visual of the person coming at me, triggering a response. Okay, those sensory information. Okay, brings in this whole concept of the amygdala activating the HPA. Okay, and again, it's purposeful for a few seconds, but not all the time. Okay, alrighty. So then it goes into the cascade right here, okay? So the amygdala activates the hypothalamus. This is the particular subset The hypothalamus has a number of areas of specialization. In neurobiology, we call that a nucleus. So there's this thing called the paraventricular nucleus. It just means it is right there next to the ventricles in your brain. Okay, and so it makes this hormone called corticotropin releasing hormone. All right, that then leaves the hypothalamus. It jumps out of the blood into the pituitary. Okay, and then it's going to bind to cells in the pituitary. Okay, and this would be the anterior part of your pituitary. And there are a couple different classes of receptors that respond to that CRH. Okay, that then will dictate the type of response you have. And people differ here. So here's part of the personalized aspect. Depending on CRH1, CRH2, you have a different way of responding. All right, so then the pituitary releases, like I said, ACTH. This is what I was going over in the figure that we talked about earlier. ACTH travels down the bloodstream. It's going to then activate the adrenal cortical surface, and then that's going to cause a release of glucocorticoids. Okay, all right. So then it feeds back, okay, onto the glucocorticoid receptor. Receptor. And this is the key molecular difference. A lot of us are very different into these factors, and you don't need to know about it, but the concept that we're different means that maybe we can individualize and specialize this. Okay, so don't get all caught up in all this. Okay, so they say that maybe we should be able to tap into this. If we're going to we do the molecular analysis, and then there's been attempts at fingerprinting these differences. One way is we can give you an artificial steroid, okay, and see whether or not that will get back how sensitive the negative feedback shutoff is. If you're chronically stressed, it should be relatively insensitive, and you should have high levels of cortisol. People that are depressed have high levels of cortisol. They have very dysregulated cortisol. Okay, people that are depressed have very dysregulated what are called diurnal patterns. Okay, so we normally have this rush of cortisol to increase our blood glucose to get us the heck out of bed. Okay, and get our day going. All right, so, and that can get dysregulated. So they talk about these tests right here. They talk about progesterone, which also influences it. All right. All right, so then we get into some stuff that is really, this concept, okay, of personalized, okay? So could we use just a glucocorticoid receptor antagonist, okay? Can we use drugs that target individual types of receptors? This gets into a lot of pharmacology, this high level that you don't need to know about, okay? But it is going through the concept of how we would go about this, okay? And then lastly, it gets into this molecular modulator of our stress response. Cool. Then you just read through the overview, and you're done. But I kind of help read it with you, which is very cool. And that's how we're going to roll in this class. Okay. Very cool. All right. So now here we see, okay, the key figure that was in that paper, and I kind of went over it. So, and then we have Robert Sapolsky's. And I don't know why I did this, but 1, 2, 3 different ways of looking at this video. Right? Again, it's really cool video, and he's an amazing professor.
So. Understand this disease at all. First topic being, what does biology have?
And he talks about the different levels, the different ways your psychology and physiology are impacted. Right? Yeah, answer the quiz right here, and then again, this is an overview of what's going on, right? And yeah, that's it. That's it. All right. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably end at that moment. I'm going to get rid of this redundancy. I apologize for that. And I'm going to make another lecture later on today and send them both out. All right. So with that, we'll see you guys next time. All right. It's Julie.